Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Retro Wrestling Room. We have a very special guest here tonight. We have the former GHC Tag Team Champion, never Openweight Champion, IWGP Intercontinental Champion, and a former ROH Champion. We have the one and only Michael Elgin with us tonight. How you doing, mate?
I've been better, but thank you very much for having me.
That's okay, no problem at all. As people can see on the video here, you're currently in the hospital. You've been in there for quite a while as well at the moment. Could you explain to people what's happening and the progress that's being made at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So, sorry, I was just turning
That's
off the
okay, no
fan here.
problem.
In December at work, I had hurt my neck, and going through workman's comp, I was waiting to have a C6, C7 fusion of my neck, and workman's comp had denied the claim, so I had to get a lawyer to go through the claim. And through the process of waiting and being quite immobile, I woke up on Wednesday, February 19th, and my leg was discolored and like 3 times the size. So my wife rushed me to the emergency room. At the emergency room, they were actually fearful that I might lose my leg. So they airlifted me to a hospital that had specialists that deal with vascular issues. They found a bunch of blood clots in my leg and actually in my lungs. So I've been in the hospital on blood thinners, and they tried to have a surgery last Tuesday, but they believe that the blood clots started a little bit before I had the symptoms. So they were hardened and they couldn't draw them out. So they had to order special equipment, and now they have to go in through 3 separate access points to get all the blood clots out. And that surgery will be next Tuesday. Well, this coming Tuesday, sorry.
Right,
So I've been in here almost 2 weeks now.
2 weeks. Wow. Um, with that type of surgery, like when is even if it went all correctly and everything went fine, how long is the recovery time?
So for the leg, I'll need to be on blood thinners for 6 months. And you're not supposed to wrestle with blood thinners, just in case the nature of wrestling, you could get busted open. Sorry, accidentally at any time. So with blood thinners, you're not really supposed to do any activity that's going to risk that type of injury where you can get cut open and the blood comes out on blood thinners. But also, like I said, I had some blood clots in my lungs that traveled to my lungs. So they want to monitor me for 6 months after this to make sure, because I mean, sometimes walking has been a struggle since they found I shouldn't say since they found about maybe a couple days prior to me going into the hospital and my legs swelling up and everything. I could feel myself kind of working harder to breathe. Walking upstairs was more difficult. So it'll be at least 6 months for that, and then I still have to get the fusion in my neck, which I do have an appointment next Friday. As long as my surgery goes well Tuesday, I'll be meeting with a surgeon Friday. I believe that's like the 8th, March 8th, to see about when I can schedule the next surgery as well.
So, wow. So there's still quite a long road to recovery, should we say?
Probably at least the rest of 2025, which sucks because I've been through hell the last 4 years to get back to where I was about to get back to, and sadly, now these injuries or I shouldn't say injuries and just medical issues are kind of piling up. So likely I'll be out of commission for the remaining of 2025.
Is this the biggest injury setback you've had so far in your career?
Yeah, and you know what's scary is this isn't even from the career of pro wrestling.
Yeah.
I was very lucky with wrestling. I had 2 knee surgeries in my right knee, a knee surgery in my left knee, and a fractured orbital that I had surgery from. But I think the most time I was off was 5 months for my knee, which I was younger at that injury, and they told me I was supposed to be out for 9 months. But when you're 20 years old and only 6 years into your career and trying to make it somewhere, you kind of rush things. But I haven't had any issues since those surgeries. So this is definitely the longest I'll be out of any kind of activity, because I haven't even been able to hit the gym since December 18th. So it's definitely the longest I've been out of commission fully, and definitely going to be the longest recovery time I've had of any issues in the past. And it's kind of sucks that it's from everything that happened leading me to a regular job, and this injury happens at a regular job rather than the profession I gave my life to.
You've recently started the YouTube series. I want to get the title right. Elgin's Wrestle Wisdom.
Yes, yeah. So at first it just started, I was making posts on Facebook and Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, and going live on Facebook and just kind of talking about wrestling, talking about, the art of what professional wrestling is. Because sometimes when I watch wrestling, I feel that people are lacking in that area. Right now, I'm sure you would say so. I'm sure that everybody that is watching this or even watches wrestling would say we're probably at one of the most athletic times ever in professional wrestling. But sometimes as we push the envelope in an athleticism style, we forget about what it is we're supposed to do. And what we're supposed to do is garner emotional reaction from the crowd, not just a reaction for what we're doing with our bodies move-wise, but we want them to be emotionally connected to us so that they're emotionally invested in us. And the emotional investment is the same as like watching your favorite TV show. When it ends on a Tuesday night, you want to go, dang, I can't wait till next Tuesday to tune in. And sometimes I feel that that's lacking in wrestling, because at the end of the day, wrestling is an episodic show. Whether you want to call it entertainment or sports, it is supposed to be episodic. So you are supposed to leave people with a hook to tune in next week, next month, whatever the time frame is that you're wrestling. And some of those little attributes that were given to us and have worked for, hundreds of years, we're kind of missing that. And it's not anything to say that the wrestlers today aren't great, because they are. It's just when you add the finer details, I think wrestling becomes even better. And I think right now WWE is really adding a lot of finer details, and we see that with the profits they're making, with the ratings they're getting, the viewership. And I just think that if we adopt some of those thought processes into the wrestling we do, it's going to be better for the fans and also for us wrestlers.
We're actually a very similar age. We're very close in age. What were your earliest wrestling memories?
So, funny enough, I'm a December baby. So, I'm a December 13th baby. And the first year I was born, that Christmas, there's pictures of me sitting in the old LJN wrestling action figure ring with my cousins playing with their LJN figures around me. And there's actually also a picture of me opening up the Jimmy Hart LJN figure. So I kind of was born into professional wrestling. Like, the bug just bit me right out of the womb, and it never left.
Because I remember the first pay-per-view I remember actually taping off TV was the SummerSlam 91. So that would have been August 91, I think. I can remember things before that, but I'm not sure now if that's because I've watched things before.
Right,
or
of course, yep.
You kind of lose it all in your mind. But yeah, like yourself, I've got photos of me when I was very young, playing with Hasbro figures and things like that. I know you're a big fan of Bret Hart, one of biggest influences. How early on, when you were watching wrestling, did you realise that this is my guy?
So it's funny. He was always in the top of who I liked, but until probably, I would say maybe the last 10 years, he took over as like the number one guy. Like I said, I was always a fan. So when I got into wrestling, it was the Hulkamania area, right? So you like Hulkamania. And I'm not condoning the things he's done since then. I'm saying as a kid growing up, born in 86, early 90s, I think that every kid around my age that was a wrestling fan at one point was a Hulkamaniac. But I remember very vividly earlier in my fandom liking the actual athleticism. So liking the British Bulldogs, liking the Hart Foundation, liking Ricky Steamboat, liking Randy Savage. So I definitely started to appreciate and enjoy Bret Hart's work. But as I kind of advanced in my career, I got into indies. So I saw a little bit different style. And there was always the debate with my age group growing up. Are you a Shawn guy or are you a Bret guy? And I was both of them, but I think Sean kind of took the forefront a little bit because I saw more of Sean when I watched Japanese style wrestling at a young age. I think by '96 I had Super J Cup 94 and 95 VHS tapes. So I was watching that style, and Shawn Michaels kind of reminded me a little bit more of that style. But I was always a fan of Brett. But I would say likely in the last 10 years, with a greater appreciation of the finer details of wrestling, Brett has kind of become my number one, at least in the United States, because I'm a Kenta Kobashi guy through and through. I think until the day I die, he'll be my number one. Like, that's just what I love about wrestling. Watching that documentary that I believe it's Wrestle Colin on YouTube put out, it's just like that is what drew me to wrestling. Yes, there's an entertainment value. Yes, I was once a Hulkamaniac as a kid, but as I grew older, as I started training at the age of 14, as I began my career, I fell in love with believing we were gladiators going into the Coliseum and fighting to the death, rather than I want to be an entertainer like The Rock and Stone Cold, which are great wrestlers, but I was like, yeah, you could be them, or I could be like Kenta Kobashi, or I could be like Bret Hart, or I could be like a CM Punk. And all these guys that I started watching as I began training travel the indies. I always looked at my career as I want to be the Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko type, where I might not be the tallest, but I've traveled the world, I've made a name for myself, and my talent is undeniable, so I have to get these opportunities because of my talent alone. So I think the change started really early of what type of wrestling I really enjoyed. Brett, as far as Brett, I would say the last 10 years, appreciation has grown tenfold for him.
It's funny you should mention Kenta Kobashi because it's the 22nd anniversary of his amazing match with Misawa from Noah.
Yep.
Actually, today. People that have watched our YouTube channel. Unfortunately, it's been taken down off YouTube at the moment, our review of the match. But yes, you can still find it out there in different places. Me and my wife, we go through all the matches that Dave Meltzer's rated 5 stars over the years, and we talk through the match and then kind of see what parts of the match that we maybe agree with, maybe we don't agree with the ratings, but it's always a fun discussion to go through those matches.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you have two 5 stars matches from Dave Meltzer,
Yes.
which I will get up now. The first off was the incredible match with Davey Richards at the... No, let me get the title right. Sundown.
Showdown in the Sun.
Showdown in the Sun. I always get the words muddled up. Yeah. What were some of your memories of that match? Did you realise that the quality of the match would catch on that match before you actually had the match?
So this is going to sound so egotistical. I got into Ring of Honor in 2010, and before getting into Ring of Honor, I was a huge Davey Richards fan. I think anybody who wrestled was watching the work he done. And I sat in Toronto, and I believe it was Death Before Dishonor, Davey Richards versus Tyler Black. Do you remember that title match?
Yeah.
And I was in awe. And my best friend and many times tag team partner, Ashley Six, was with me, because we went and helped set up and tried to get a dark match. But I really wanted to watch Davey versus Tyler. And I looked at him and said, the second me and him have a match on a big stage is going to be 5 stars. And so I was many years before saying, sorry, I just got to take some medicine.
No, that's fine.
So I had that feeling in my mind before we'd even worked with each other. And Davey, I always got along with Davey very well. He did a tour of Canada. He stayed at my house. He drove around with me because I got him a bunch of bookings. And I was on all those same shows. And then when I moved to the St. Louis area, that's where he lived. So we would often, hit the gym together, just get in the dojo and roll around together. And we had a great respect for one another. And I remember the night before that match, sitting in my hotel room, watching some of my favorite Davey Richards matches, which were him and um, Shingo Takagi from Dragon Gate USA, and him and Tyler and a few others. And I just formulated a match in my head, and I had ideas. And I walked into the building on the day of that match with Davey, and I said, Davey, what would you like to do? And he said, no, tonight's your night. What do you want to do? And I just looked at him, laughed. I said, funny enough, I have it all in my head. And he just looked at me, goes, I knew you would. That's why I said this is your night. And he changed one little thing, and we went out there and had that match. So I knew that we could do something unique because I was a fan of his style. He was a fan of my style. And we knew who we were as wrestlers. So there was no second guessing when we were putting something together or doing something out there, because we were so confident in who we were as pro wrestlers. It just meshed very well.
Going slightly out of order now with the timeline, you had the second 5-star match against Naito in New Japan. What were some of the differences between that match? If somebody was, say, going in to watch, or like we do, we watch our 5-star matches. What are some of the qualities and differences between those two matches for you?
I think I had done enough different things in my career that I could adapt to any opponent, and my goal was always to have the best match I could with the person I was wrestling. And sometimes when you get too formulaic and you do too many of the same things and it has to be done the same way, it doesn't always mesh well with your opponent, because you're so, it has to be this way, it has to be this way. And I just never looked at wrestling that way. I always looked at, okay, I have all these tools. This person has all these tools. Now, how do these tools go together to make the perfect item? So I think it stood out differently within how I wrestled, and how Naito was a different wrestler than Davey Richards. But I could feel how the crowd was reacting. And I was very fortunate that the Japanese audiences took to me. Within 3 matches in my first tour, the crowd was chanting my name. And they knew that I had appreciation not only for the fans, but I had appreciation for the history of Japanese wrestling. So I think it was just that perfect storm of Naito. That was kind of the rise of Naito at that time. What was it, 2016? So it was the rise of Naito. I was getting firmly over with the crowds in Japan. And we both, like I said, knew who we were, knew how we represented ourselves, knew how we presented ourselves in front of the audience. And it was just that perfect mesh of two people that were on top of their game.
Now going back again, you'd been in Ring of Honor for... When did you say you started? 2011-ish? 2010.
2010.
So 2014, you finally beat Adam Cole for the world title. At that time in your career, how big of an achievement was it for you? Because, like you said, you were obviously like the Hulkamania era when you were a kid, but the big thing for you was those American indies. And at that time, the Ring of Honor was the indie world title. So how big an honor, excuse the pun, but how big of an honor was it for you to be such a big fan of that style and then to be the world champion in Ring of Honor?
It was a big deal, Ring of Honor, I think, without Ring of Honor, we would have never had NXT Black and Gold. I don't think we'd have the resurgence of wrestling how it has been without the company of Ring of Honor. So being bestowed the opportunity to be their top guy and their world champion was a huge honor and a gigantic moment in my career.
I mean, looking at some of the clips there, I'm not sure what the rating was for that match, but it had to be pretty high up there.
Yeah, I don't remember. When somebody brings up the ratings, like, it's always cool to be honored in that type of press. But really, I just want to make sure that the audience who is watching us is having the best time of their life and they're reacting to everything we're doing. So yes, it's very nice and very very pleasant to be awarded, great star ratings and such. But I think the ideal is, at the end of the night, are people talking about their experience watching your match? at the end of the match, are people reacting to it in the way you want them to, whether that be cheering or booing, whatever the end is. And I think we accomplished that. I think it was a big night. It was the first live Ring of Honor pay-per-view, which is funny because they kept kind of pushing off me winning the belt. It was like, we want you to win it at WrestleMania weekend. We want you to do here. And then when we finally started talking about that very first live pay-per-view, the company felt that was the best night to do so. And that's something that, it's a big accomplishment, because not only did I win the title, that was the very first live pay-per-view for Ring of Honor. They had pay-per-views before, but none of them were live. That was the very first live pay-per-view. And I mean actual pay-per-view, not internet pay-per-view. That was on, cable providers, the very first. It was like barely legal 97 to me, really,
I remember those dark days of the internet pay-per-views.
I remember the dark days of being in the back when Jim Cornette would lose his mind about the internet pay-per-views.
I'm not sure one of them went smooth.
Yeah, I don't remember anything going smooth, really. And Jim Cornette, like, whether you love him or hate him, I don't agree with everything he says on the podcast. No. I think him shitting on Kenny Omega and Young Bucks is silly. I'm huge fans of those guys. I think they definitely help change the landscape of wrestling. I think they're super talented. I do not agree with everything Jim Cornette says, but he has a great mind for the business. And not only does he have a great mind for the business, I think his blow-ups are comical. Like, he's just a funny guy. Even when he's not trying to be funny, he's just so quick-witted and a wordsmith that you laugh, because he's just on another level when he's kind of insulting people.
Yeah, 100%. He's one of those. He's definitely a level-hate character within the wrestling world, but the wrestling minds that he's had, and I mean, I would put Heenan first as a manager. Heyman's up there, but Cornette is right there.
Yeah,
100%.
He definitely is. And if, as I said, some people say things and they get in this, realm of trying to be, not even necessarily trying to be. He voices his opinion, whether he's trying to be controversial or just being entertaining, whatever it is. He does have a great mind. I think he had some great advice for many wrestlers when I was in Ring of Honor. The only problem I ever thought he had in Ring of Honor is he was so used to the house show days. But in Ring of Honor, we were recording everything and putting everything out, whether it be on the website, on the internet, via DVD. So we didn't have the luxury of taking it easy on house shows, because then those DVDs wouldn't sell, which means what was the point of having those shows? So really, even at Ring of Honor, anybody who complains about his booking style or his thoughts, I don't think that his thoughts were poor. I think sometimes they were poorly executed, because he didn't realize we weren't in the house show business. We were in everything is taped business and everything is sold business. So if you don't have at least a couple matches on each show that makes the audiences want to purchase that or watch that show when it's on the website or whatever they're doing now, then you're losing valuable income on that event. And that was really the only problem with him, because if you go back and watch his OVW booking, it was great. Yeah, Smoky Mountain wasn't around very long, but great booking in that. So he's definitely got a great mind for professional wrestling. Just sometimes, he has his thoughts just like other people have their thoughts, and we don't always agree with it. But I generally think that Jim Cornette has a great mind in wrestling. It was great to learn from him. I would constantly bug him at shows because of his mind. And like I said, I'm not going to agree with everything he says. But, I mean, I think if you agree with 100% of somebody says, then you're being fake, because nobody's going to have the exact same thought process of everybody.
When I was speaking to Brian Idol the other night, he's the promoter in... national promoter, I guess, in the NWA now.
Yeah.
I was asking him about things like when you're in the ring with, say, bigger names, when maybe you're a younger wrestler, how do you decide what to ask them and what advice to get from them? And he said, and I thought it was a really good quote. I'm going to butcher it verbatim, but he was saying, don't ask them little facts like, I remember that time when so-and-so. They ask them things like, how did you feel in that moment? Like how would you react to this and such happened? You know, and I think that was really valuable because a lot of people may get starstruck by wrestlers that they're in the ring with, and it ends up turning to trivia with those people rather than asking for advice.
Right.
So when you were like with Jim Cornette, for instance, what were the type of questions you were asking him?
So I asked a lot of questions my entire career. So I'm not just going to cover Jim Cornette. When I was breaking into the business, I was that indie style that fans were kind of getting accustomed to. And I was one of the first ones in Ontario. Not in Canada as a whole. Generico and Steen kind of, and the Montreal scene was much more advanced than the Ontario scene when I started. So I began bringing that indie style. So I was the guy that would often wrestle the indie guys coming into Canada. So I'm talking 18, 19, 20 years old. I'm wrestling Samoa Joe, TJ Wilson, AJ Styles, Bobby Roode, Johnny Devine, any indie guys that were coming in, Chris Sabin. I would wrestle them. And the same with Jim Cornette. I would often ask things like my positioning, my timing, my selling. Who should I study? Who do I remind you of that I can maybe go back and watch some stuff and get some ideas from past performances to bring to the new age because people haven't seen it in a long time. So I really trying to hone in on the little things because I could teach chimpanzees how to do the moves. I can't teach them how to bring out emotion. I can't teach them how to do things the why, when, and where of wrestling, which is the most important thing. And I think, like what I said at the top, is why I started the wrestling, the podcast, and the updates on X and YouTube and Facebook, were because we are so encompassed by what we are doing that we forget that there has to be a reason, there has to be a place, and there has to be a time to do what we do, and that is the art. So those would be the type of questions I would ask guys that were more advanced than me, more experienced, so that I could bring myself to their level. Because, you know, I've been on a million shows where I'm wrestling kids, and they're very talented, but they're nowhere near my level yet. And that's not saying that they're not good, that's just saying they don't have the experience or the valuable experience that I do. And that changes things. So I always try to say, hey, you know, your timing here, your positioning here, your selling here, how to get into position and making it look natural. Those were all things that I really focused on asking people who were more advanced in their career than I was.
When you left ROH and you went to New Japan in that time, I think people forget that, my word, at that time, New Japan was the coolest promotion on the planet. It was when, well, you mentioned them earlier, Bucks and Kenny, you know, they'd gone there, and Bullet Club at that time had really taken off. Within that time, you built yourself up as such a good in-ring talent that you won what people call the workers title, the IC title, in the workers promotion.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be such a big compliment to you as well for your talents.
Yeah, you know, as I said, I sometimes now I wish I had focused on other aspects of wrestling, meaning I wish I was caring more about merchandise, and I wish I was caring more about putting out content. And that just wasn't me. I never considered myself entertainer, although I thought I could entertain people with my wrestling. I always, as I said, when I look at pro wrestling and I think about pro wrestling and I think about how I wanted to present myself, I was a gladiator walking into the Coliseum willing to die on my shield for what I believed in. And what I believed in is pro wrestling is the most beautiful art form and the best sport in the world.
100%. Sometimes, I guess, in all aspects of things, but especially wrestling, it is that fine balance, I think. You know, you've got the super workers, and you may kind of get this comparison. Somebody like a Lance Storm, for instance. People used to, even on commentary, they used to make fun of him as being the most boring man in the world.
Right.
For me, who loved like the wrestling side of wrestling, he was one of my favourites. I loved Lance Storm, but I think there was always that kind of fine line. And it is, yeah, I guess it is always a balance. Somebody like an Austin, he was able to have these amazing matches in WCW at that time, and even that early days of WWF, until he had that terrible neck injury, and then he had to switch it up. But then there was also that massive switch in him as well, where the entertainer side really took over.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're those kind of balances that people who are either side, either they're the big entertainer in the wrestling world, or they're the strictly wrestler side of wrestling. You know, it is that really hard balance. What type of things would you have changed, do you think, with a character?
I was actually just thinking that I don't think I would have changed anything, because I was starting to show the world my promo ability when I finally went to TNA wrestling. So I was in Ring of Honor, and I was kind of the muscle. I was hired as the muscle. So nobody really allowed me to talk or bring out that character. I was always, even in pre-tapes and production meetings, it was like, we want you to talk in snippets. We want to build video packages. Like, this is you. This is how you present yourself. Then I went to Japan, and Japanese isn't my first language, so you're told to talk so that, you know, English speakers and Japanese speakers can kind of understand. You can be translated. So I think I did the best of my ability to present myself in the frames that I was presented into. Like, for instance, you never thought Tyler Black was going to be what you see Seth Rollins is now today.
No.
So I think, had I have gotten the correct opportunities after my stints in Ring of Honor in New Japan, I could have presented those sides, because, as I said, through and through, I'm a wrestling fan. Yes, you have to be entertaining, but I wanted to be that pro wrestler that you could watch a match and go, dang, and then see a promo and go, dang, and then see an angle and go, whoa, and then see how I present myself on a larger stage and go, whoa. But I wanted my foundation to be that wrestling. So as far as changing, I don't think I've changed my style, but I think I might have opened myself up more so that people could have seen who Aaron is outside of Michael Elgin. Because I think a lot of the tribulations I would face later in life were because nobody knew who Aaron was. Because when I broke into wrestling, when I broke into wrestling, people would tell you never tell wrestlers or fans or post on social media or anywhere that you're in a relationship. Like, that was the thing.
Right, okay.
Like, literally don't do that, just in case, because you could, if a fan likes you because they're attracted to you, you don't want them to know you're in a relationship. Like, that's the wrestling I grew up in with. So the presentation of Michael Elgin and Aaron were always so drastically different until later in life. So I think people never got to know that side of me. And maybe that would have helped. But then again, the wrestling part of me goes, no, I don't really want to do that. People don't need to know Aaron. They need to know Michael Elgin. But I've seen recently somebody aired a promo of Obafemi, like, saying girls don't talk in NXT. And they're like, oh, I liked Obafemi until he was a sexist. It's like, he's a character on TV. What do you mean? You know what I mean? And it's like, well, Triple H buried Booker T. And I don't know him personally, so I can't say this. It's like, so Triple H is racist because he had an angle with a black guy and said a line 10 years ago on TV as an entertainer, because you know wrestling is quote unquote fake, because all these wrestlers nowadays just say, oh, take wrestling too seriously, it's fake. So, like, you can't blur the lines anymore. If you say something on TV, all of a sudden it's like, for instance, if Keanu Reeves shows up at your house, are you going to call the cops because he's murdered a bunch of people as John Wick? Right? It's just silly. So sometimes I wish I had changed that, but then other times I'm like, no, because the beauty of wrestling is not knowing who you're dealing with, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for instance, people here in the UK, if you grew up in the 80s, oh my god, the name just went straight out of my head then. There was a Japanese wrestler who took the name as well. Kendo Nagasaki, sorry.
Yeah.
You know, in the UK, nobody knew anything about him in that time. He just would not let anything out there at all. Whereas now, in the Twitter age, that may really hinder him. Because,
it would?
yeah, because you just... everybody has to have this social media presence in a day like today.
Yeah, and as I said, it has its benefits, but the problem with social media is anybody can say anything, and if it catches on, even though it's not the truth, it becomes the truth, and it becomes, you know, just that's what it is, and it's kind of scary. Like, no lie, and I don't know what you want to talk about, but my life was ruined because of lies on the internet that I have proved to be lies, and still nobody cares. And it's like, it's sad because you're not hurting Michael Elgin, you're hurting Aaron Frobel. Mike Elgin was a character I played to take care of my family. And they hurt the human and the person that is Aaron. And anybody, and then they silence people because how dare somebody stick up for Aaron the person because we think that Michael Elgin did this because somebody said it without proof, even though Aaron has shown proof that it's false. And it's like, it's scary, man. It's scary how much influence social media has because it's fake. I mean, anytime you look, you can go on Twitter right now and you can see somebody in an interview. It's big here. I'm not political. I'm not trying to get into politics, but I know it's all over social media, the Trump Zelensky thing. And you'll see tweets back to back. Somebody interpret it one way and somebody say the other way. Trump's the biggest piece of shit in the world. Trump's our hero. Zelensky shouldn't have done that. He should. You know what I mean? It's just like you don't know what you're seeing because everybody's going to interpret everything differently. Everybody's going to take a story and run. And people have literally mocked by putting a story out on TikTok and waiting weeks to go, I never even heard that. I was just making it up to see how far it could go. Like with policies and stuff, and it just travels the world. And there's this saying that, the truth, a lie will go around the world twice before the truth can even get its pants on.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's true. And it's scary, man. It's really scary. Like, I've had some dark times because of social media for no reason of my own, and it sucks. So it's definitely a great tool to promote yourself, but we're in an age where some wrestlers would rather work on being famous online so people cheer for them and want to get them booked, and they're not working so hard on their pro wrestling, and these guys might get an opportunity at AEW when they first open. But then guess what? They don't get their contracts picked back up. And it's because that, the package isn't there. Social media might react, but TV's not going to react because people are tuning in to watch pro wrestling, not see what you say that's funny on Twitter.
I'm glad you did touch on that there, because we jokingly say on this channel we're the most positive YouTube channel out there, because even when we're reviewing things, we just don't enjoy that style of the negative shit throwing.
There's no
I
sense
guess
for it. Why
No.
when you're speaking about something that you love,
Exactly.
something that you appreciate, do you want to bring those negative thoughts into that world? It doesn't make any sense to me. It seems like some people just want to complain, and it's very weird, you know. And we allow people to dictate how we think when they're literally grifting. People come out of the woodwork saying that they're wrestling journalists, and then within 2 weeks they got an OnlyFans or they have a Discord or something that they're just trying to grift money off of people. And it's like, do what you want, but don't try to come and dictate what we're supposed to do because you want to make a little money off of people. Like, it's just a very strange time. And I hope that everybody is making some money and everybody's living well and everybody is enjoying wrestling, but it seems like nobody enjoy wrestling anymore. It's like they enjoy it to find something to hate so they can complain on the internet. And it's okay to have an opinion. It's okay to say, I don't like something. But I see all these people telling the world of wrestling how it should be done. And it's like, we might be able to take some ideas from you, but you don't know the finer arts of it. You're going to critique everything just because you hate it. What's the point of watching it? I'd rather those people not watch it if they're just going to critique and say they hate things. I might watch AEW and not like a match and not really understand a character or a performer. But somebody else will. So they're a valuable part of that promotion. And then when it comes to AEW, it's like people shitting on it. I want AEW to be neck and neck with WWE when it comes to ratings and revenue, because that just opens up more possibilities for me and my friends to make a living and for fans to come together in love and support of something that I've loved since I was a baby, which is pro wrestling.
I know you said that you weren't sure what I wanted to talk about. I purposely didn't bring up certain things where, and cut me off at any time if you don't want to talk about anything. Um, if you type in Michael Elgin, certain things will come up,
Yeah.
and you know we can't get away from that. I mean, how much? I know it's had a big effect on your career, but it's got to have a big effect on Aaron as well.
I mean, I almost killed myself in 2021.
How do you
Because
how do you come back from that?
I mean, I never have those thoughts again, but every day is pretty much a struggle. It's really hard, you know. I definitely don't think of that seriousness of taking my own life, but when my wife is having a hard time justifying coming up to see me in the hospital because of bills, because of my baby, because we can't afford a babysitter for her to come visit me in the hospital, because I'm not in a position to pay those bills, because I spent $800,000 suing people, cleared my name, and not one of these wrestling reporters want to put out the story that I cleared my name. Nobody wants to ask TNA the questions I've asked them to ask, and I don't want TNA to fail. I would love that if TNA, AEW, and WWE were all drawing in 2 million viewers a week. I would love that for the wrestlers, for the companies. But the fact is, there's wrestlers in WWE, and I'm not saying their names because I'm not trying to drag anybody down. There's wrestlers in WWE, there's wrestlers in TNA, there's wrestlers in AEW that have been accused of much worse than what the accusations against me were, because nobody even knows what the accusations against me were. The problem was there was a movement. So if somebody says, and I'll be open right now, I'll tell you exactly what was said about me. One girl said that I shared a bed with her, made a move, she denied the move, and I stopped. But it was attempted sexual assault. That doesn't make sense to me. Number one, that wasn't even what happened, because I had 3 witnesses that were in the hotel room at the time that TNA had emails from, had signed affidavits from to show what happened. That girl had accused 3 other wrestlers, one being somebody that was in TNA after me, of sexual assault and beating her physically. They accused this man, but they didn't accuse him online, accused it to everybody in the Michigan, Detroit scene. Then another girl said that I led her on to have a serious relationship and cheated on her, so that was abusive. So one, those two things don't go together. I'm either leading you on or I'm cheating on you. But nobody knows that. And then I had an ex that went kind of nuts and tried to file a false police report, which I had fought with the cops about, and they had corrected that statement too. So all the info is out there for these people. And the girl that said that I was abusive because of, you know, leading her on, I come to find out she got fired from working for the Calgary Flames because she went on a date with a coworker and he didn't want anything more than that first date, and she harassed him and tried to make claims in her workplace of him harassing her, and he just showed the text message and she was fired the next day. So it's like, you didn't even look into it, but then when my name's put out there with the names of people that actually committed crimes of sexual assault and rape that have been proved to have done so, you just assume that my name goes with those names. So it was an uphill battle. As I said, 800 grand, cost me a $1.5 million contract that was going to begin in 2022. Sold every one of my collections. You're talking about Hasbro's LJN figures. At one time, I had every LJN figure, every Hasbro figure, and every Galoob figure. They're all gone. I'm now in the hospital for 2 weeks. I have a Bronco, 2023 Bronco that's paid off that I now have to go sell and get money and buy a shit box so that I can have some money to survive. So they have generally affected my entire life. I don't get to put the roof that my wife deserves over her head because I'm struggling. And now she's got extra struggle because I'm waiting for workman's comp to cover this. And I've been off work for 10 weeks. And I had to spend all the savings that I accumulated from my wrestling career just to survive. I had to sell everything I have. If I move tomorrow, I own a vehicle and clothes. And then whatever we have in our house, dresser and bed-wise. I don't have anything to my name. I had to sell my home gym. I had to get rid of everything just to be able to live and put food on the table and put clothes on my children's backs over lies. It's really tough. I mean, some days I wake up and I don't want to get out of bed But then I see a picture of my wife, my daughter, and my son, and I got to get up out of bed, and I got to work, and I got to live life where I can't support them. So there's going to be somebody that they push to the limit, and they're going to kill themselves, and they're going to leave a note for all the fans that tweet at them these lies, for all these Dave Meltzers and Sean Ross Sapps and Mike Johnson from PW Insider that refuse to tell the true story and investigate TNA and put the real stuff out there. And there's going to be a note, and it's going to be destructive to the wrestling business, because there is somebody out there that it's going to be too much. It was almost too much for me. I'll never forget, the only reason I'm alive right now is because I was drinking too much, and I smoked a lot of pot, and I forgot to turn a safety off on my gun. Had I not been in that position, my brains would have been all over my living room. And then when I opened my eyes and realized what had happened, and was about to turn that safety off so I could finish the job, a text from my wife, she wasn't my wife at the time, had lit up my phone, and on my home screen was a picture of my son. And in that moment, I said, I cannot leave my son alone, and this woman cares about me even though I'm trying to push her away. I'm now married. We have as of today, my daughter's 5 months old. I never think about that stuff anymore, and I want to be clear about that. But some days it's very much a mentally struggle, because I should be, whether people want to agree or not, whether you want to agree or not, the only reason I'm not on Netflix every Monday getting ready to be in Toronto at the Elimination Chamber is because of lies on the internet. So every day is tough. Every day is a struggle. I mean, there's times where I literally feel like I can't get out of bed. There's nights where I have to, as soon as my wife and baby fall asleep, I have to leave because I can't sleep. Because all that's going on in my mind is, how am I going to afford life for my family? What's going to happen when my daughter's 14 years old and she looks on the internet and somebody is trying to say that I sexually abuse people when it's false? What's going to happen when my son's a teenager and wants to tell somebody about his dad, the pro wrestler, and they see people talking shit about me online and then he's bullied at school? People don't think about that. Now, if I did these things, I would be sitting here with a completely different story. I would be telling you how apologetic I am, how sorry I am, how it was wrong to do. Even if I did the things that were claimed against me, like I said, if people ever read what was actually said, they would know that it wasn't what others were accused of. And then people don't even know that. Like, if you ask somebody who talks shit about me online, what was he accused of? They'll tell you I stole protein in Japan, which I proved was false. They said that I peed on a girl in 2008 because I told a story on the Kevin Steen show, which was for comedy, which I have cleared up, which now, 12 years later, I would never tell a story like that thinking it was fun. But in 2013, go look at Truth Martini on the Art of Wrestling podcast and Cliff Compton. Those were the two most heavily downloaded stories because of those things. Go look at CM Punk and Colt Cabana on their straight shooting series at RF Video. Go look at all these shoot interviews. Go look at the media that we were watching. Go look how much money the book Do They Serve Beer in Hell by Tucker Max. Go see how many copies that sold. At the time, the humor was different. Does that justify it? No. I was incorrect in telling that story in the Kevin Steen show. I'm ashamed that I did it. But at that time, 12 years ago, I was 26 years old. 25 to be exact, because I was turning 26 that year. I was more immature than I am now. But now I don't find those things funny. So the people that are trying to even diminish my accomplishments and prevent me from wrestling online don't even bring up what I was accused of, because they don't know. They talk about Simon Gotch telling people I stole protein in Japan, which I went through the story a million times, and I have even offered these websites money to go and get a FBI background check that will show everybody I do not have a criminal record and I'm allowed in Japan. I've showed the messages from Japan saying they want to bring me back, but social media ruined that because some people believe social media. I've shown the receipt of the pull down bar that I was questioned about, that I bought in 2021 and I was in Japan in 2022. It's crazy that people can try to diminish me, try to hurt my ability to earn. I tried to do stand-up comedy and people mock me for that. So what do you want? Do you want me out of wrestling, or do you want me not to have a life? I don't know if Joey Ryan is guilty or not. I don't know about that story, but we know he got fired from Disney World. Well, you wanted him out of wrestling. He was out of wrestling, so now you want him fired from Disney World too? Do you want him not being able to make a living? For what? You know, I'm not saying that. But yet, and again, I'm not saying anything bad about these gentlemen. Nick Gage did prison time for robbing a bank. You don't think that what he did in that bank harmed those people behind that teller? What about Jacob Fatu? So you're telling me that I needed to go to jail so that I can be given a second chance when I don't even need a second chance because I never ruined my first one? It just doesn't make sense to me, right? I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely absurd.
If all these things that had been reported, if it had been 2 years before the Speaking Out movement, do you think you would have a completely different career at this point?
Yeah, 100%. Because people would have been more open to at least hearing my side of it and allowing me to present the truth and find it. Because the truth was out there. I took it off my YouTube because I wanted my YouTube only wrestling. But for 4 years, there was videos of all the receipts, all the court proceedings, everything. Even audio that showed that these people were lying. And nobody cared to watch it. So definitely, I think we would have been in a time where people were like, hold on, these things aren't making sense. But as I said, if you don't actually read the claim, if all you see is there was a speaking out movement in wrestling, here's the wrestlers that have been named, you don't even know what the accusations were. So how can you go?
No, you just see
as
the
I said, NXT stood by them. Right? There's people on NXT, there's people on Monday nights and Friday nights who were accused during these movements. But WWE investigated them and cleared them so they can make a living. TNA publicly stated they would investigate. Do you remember this? If you remember, they announced in the same announcement, we are terminating the contracts of Dave Christ and Joey Ryan, and we are investigating the claims of Michael Elgin. 2 days later, they then reported we are taking Michael Elgin off TV, which led everybody to believe I was then guilty, found guilty because of their investigation. An investigation that never happened because they continued to pay me for 2 years. So let me ask you, if I did these things, why did a company pay me 6 figures? I was one of 7 people who were on a guaranteed contract that made my money no matter what, that was making a living off of TNA solely no matter what. Why would they pay me for 2 years? Why would they waste that type of money if I was guilty in any sense of the word? Because if not, my contract has a morality clause, which all wrestling contracts do. So if I broke that morality clause, why did they continue to pay me? But nobody, not Dave Meltzer, not these sites that people focus on, is asking TNA those questions, so the truth will never come out. Until now, because I have sent a demand letter to TNA. I do have Johnny Bravo admitting that Scott D'Amore must have had a personal issue with me, which is also retaliation. He's confirmed. Try to talk to Scott, because that's the root of the issue. He did you wrong. Find out why he did you wrong. Well, Scott was the president of TNA when he did me wrong. Johnny Bravo is still with the company. And I have those messages. I'm not sharing them because they're going to be between my lawyer and that company. You know what I mean? And it's like, and I don't even hate Bravo, but he's admitted Scott did me wrong because he knew exactly what happened. He knew that I was paid for 2 years because we had a talk many years ago. When he reached out on TNA's behalf to cancel a seminar on me, I lost it on him. And he was like, well, this happened. And I said, you even know what happened? And I showed him the proof. He goes, I didn't know it was like that. So Scott was even covering up in the company that he had the evidence, that he had the proof, because I have the text messages and the emails that I sent all the info to the company to investigate, and they never investigated. So they've ruined my entire life. I am struggling right now. I have to sell my vehicle and buy a ship box just to survive.
Listening, I'm not sure if it was on a different podcast or if it actually was on one of your YouTube videos. I can't quite remember where it came from. And you were saying that, well, you almost said it tonight as well, but you should be at WrestleMania. You should be main eventing WrestleManias. As a teacher as well in wrestling, if say a student of yours got to that, or somebody that you've trained has got to that level and they main evented WrestleMania, would you still consider your career within wrestling a success, or would there
I
be an
wouldn't even
asterisk
say
next
my
to it
career is
for
not
you?
a success. I would be happy for them. Like, I'm happy. People I've helped, which, never going to say it. I'm so proud of Ethan Page, because there was a time where I was shit on in Ontario for being an Ethan Page supporter and getting him booked and stuff. There was a time where people hated me for telling them to book Josh Alexander in indie wrestling in Ontario. But I was the one that saw them training, gave them advice, got them booked, did whatever I could for them. Masha Slamovich's first time in TNA was because of me, because she did a seminar of mine, and I was so impressed with her. We were in New York. She lived in New York. I asked her to come help set up. I asked Gail Kim if they had a shot for her because she was really good. Now she's the top girl in TNA. So I definitely feel that my influence. I mean, go look. People do the buckle bomb power bomb. Steve Macklin, I saw do it in Canada in an indie show. Bronson Reed does it on TV. Everybody does the fall away Samoan slam, which I was the first one to do. You can't watch a power guy in a match and somebody attempt the tornado DDT in them and they stop them on their hip and turn it into a suplex, or
Or the
somebody standing
delayed
on the
vertical
apron and the
suplex.
stalling suplex in. I revolutionized a style of wrestling that I might never get credit for. So I'm very proud of my accomplishments. I just wish people would open up, whether it's to, of course, I'd love to go to WWE. I would love to. At this point, I assume that I'm never going to get the chance to wrestle for WWE. I hope I do. But I would still love to be an agent. I think being an agent, rather than just having a student do there, if I was in a position to help those guys age in a match or write an angle, which I feel I'm very good at, that would be definitely a big sense of accomplishment. But like I said, I always looked at wrestling as I was a gladiator walking into the Coliseum, and not performing for WWE. I kind of consider myself a failure, because that was the goal and I never made it there. And I've never, ever had an issue failing on my own terms. I've never, ever had an issue. I mean, the first time I was in front of Ring of Honor was 2007. I was told, get in better shape, get better gear. Then I became world champion. I was told I would never wrestle in Japan. I did. And I had a hell of a career in Japan. I was going to go to WWE. I was going to be a top star in WWE. Maybe I would never main evented WrestleMania. Maybe I would have never been world heavyweight champion. But me and Gunther, me and Chad Gable, me and all these guys, me and Andrade, me and Fatu, me and LA Knight, me and Braun Breaker, me and Jey Uso would have had the best Intercontinental Championship matches of all time, because I know I could wrestle with all these guys. I know I could have amazing matches with all of them, because I proved it my entire career. There's not a guy I wrestled where you go, damn, that was a bad match. I've wrestled AJ Styles, great. Wrestled Samoa Joe, it was great. I've wrestled Okada, great. I've wrestled Kenny, great. I've wrestled half of the WWE roster now, great stuff. I've wrestled Finn Balor, you know what I mean? I've been around these guys, wrestled, performed with them, and been at the top of my game. And truthfully, it kind of sucks, because now I feel I'm better than ever. Because not only is my body of work, my comprehension of what we do is so much greater, that I can get reactions so well from so many other things, that I'm just at the top of my game. And hopefully, when this stuff heals, hopefully by then, me and TNA have worked out our differences. I was hoping not to have to go through a lawyer and do that. I was hoping the demand letter would work. All I wanted them to do was announce on their social media that they did indeed pay me for 2 years and never investigated, because at least that would have let people listen, because they have a big reach, especially with their relationship with WWE. It wasn't about money. All I wanted was the opportunity to get back to a position to earn the money. But now, unfortunately, they have chosen not to answer that demand letter. So now I have to retain a lawyer and go after them just to clear my name, which I don't want to do. I really don't. I don't want to do any of that. It's time consuming. Mentally, it's consuming. But what else do I have to do? Because, like I said, everybody's like, well, just move on. How do you move on from something you didn't do? As I said, if I did these things, if something I did hindered my career, I would still be upset, but I would be upset with myself. And that's a whole different feeling, right? Being disappointed in yourself, being upset with yourself, facing consequences for actions that you did, I have no problem doing. But I've faced no consequences because I've never done anything. The only consequences I've faced is people on social media saying things that are untrue. And it sucks, man. It really sucks because I don't have a criminal record. If I did, I wouldn't be in the States right now because I'm Canadian and they would kick my ass out. Like, I'm sure if I was evil, my wife, who I've been with for 3 years, married for over a year now, wouldn't have had a daughter with me. But people don't look into that. And then they say, well, maybe you'll get a chance if you work on yourself. What do I have to work on? You know, was there things I needed to work on? Yeah, like saying that Kevin Steen story. But I don't feel that way anymore. I don't think that's humorous. I'm a completely different person than I was yesterday, let alone 4 years ago, or 5 years ago now almost, when people tried to ruin my career, or 12 years ago when I said that stupid story on the Kevin Steen show. I'm a completely different man. But nobody's allowing me to even show that I'm a completely different man because it's fake. I'm manipulating people. That's not really him. It's like, what, you don't know what you're talking about because you don't know who Aaron Frobel is. All you know is what people say about Michael Elgin, which is completely untrue if anybody cared to investigate.
Yeah,
it's
heart-wrenching,
isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's a really difficult situation to be in because.
So think about this. Think about this smile on my face right now. Think of how I look. Think of how you feel about hearing what I'm going through.
Yeah.
Do you think this smile's real? Or do you think I have to put on a performance every day of my life because of how I feel? Because I can't let my daughter, my son, and my wife know that every day I do everything I can to give them life, that I am struggling. And as I said, nowhere in my frame of mind do I not want to live. There's nothing like that. Nowhere in the frame of mind do I want to hurt somebody else. Nowhere in my frame of mind am I worried about people's safety around me. It's just, where do I let out the emotion? Because if I do, then I'm angry. If I do, then I have mental health problems.
Right.
So me as a man, I have to sit here and I have to put on this smiley face and I have to act like everything's okay when every day it feels like somebody is ripping my insides out, man. Every day. Not a day goes by where something doesn't hurt emotionally, physically. It's mind-numbing. But I heard a saying, the people in my life would rather see me die on top of that white horse than see me fall off of it.
All right.
And never been truer. I gotta just act like everything's okay, and I gotta be positive about wrestling and do this and do that. Yet it's destroyed my life. Literally destroyed my life.
I mean, it
Friends
did affect
that
me.
I did everything for don't even talk to me anymore. Not because I did anything wrong, but because they're afraid that somebody on social media is going to find out they're my friend, and then they'll get canceled.
Right. I mean, it did affect me then when we were talking about that, because I always try and look on a bright side of things, but in one instance, you can't really see a clear road of, right, how can I rectify this now? How can I carry on from this? And as an empathetic person, sometimes I do, because I follow you on Twitter and things, sometimes I do read your tweets, and I've seen some of them, and it says, like, I'm okay now. But when you see it just in text, you don't get the emotion so much. So sometimes when I see a message from you, on Twitter, and it says, I'm doing okay at the moment, but so-and-so, 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 I quite often wonder, I'm reading it, and I'm like, I don't know if he is. I'm not sure, Do you know, does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
like, as I said,
if it
I'm
affects
okay
me,
the fact that
then...
there's no... Yeah. Like, what I mean when I say I'm okay is I'm okay, I'm not in danger.
Right,
I'm not going to harm myself, I'm not going to hurt others, but I'm not okay. Like, I'm not okay when my alone time is not spent enjoying life. My alone time is spent worrying how I am going to provide for my wife and my kids. And worrying about that is, it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart that I'm looking for a new house, and because of our budget restrictions, we can't find anything. It hurts my heart that my wife is concerned about coming up here for surgery because she can't take the day off work because I'm waiting for workman's comp to kick in, and I have zero savings because I spent them all saving my career that wasn't even saved because these people who would beg me for this, these Dave Meltzers, these Mike Johnsons that would have me take time away from my family to hop on the phone for an hour for a podcast. And this isn't against you. I'm in the
No,
hospital.
that's okay.
I wanted to do this, but you know what I mean? It's like I gave you all that, and yet you couldn't give me time to investigate when you're calling yourself a journalist. There's people. I did a podcast a couple weeks ago and they announced it, and Kate from Fightful and Cassidy Haynes from bodyslam.net DM'd that place to try to get them to cancel me off the podcast, saying that I was a sexual abuser. And they said, show me the proof. Then they'd stop messaging Kate. Then the other one sent when my ex tried to get me arrested for shit. And then they showed the other one that said no arrests made because there was no proof. You know what I mean? So everybody
Right.
just cherry picks what they want to read. So I still have people trying to interfere with my work to this day. As I said, Johnny Bravo tried to get a seminar canceled in 2022 after my contract had run up in TNA because he worked for TNA, threatening the school that they would never give his students a contract at that school if I did a seminar there. They're trying to affect with my livelihood. And look, I started wrestling at 14. By 19, I was making a living wrestling. Not a great living, but I was getting by. And then I signed my contract with Ring of Honor in 2010. So I'm 38. That was 15 years ago. I was 23 years old. I dedicated my life to this. Where do you want me to work? People say, UPS is hiring, so you want me to go and make maybe even $30 an hour, which is nowhere close to six figures, which is nowhere close to help me in this economy? Because unfortunately, I chose wrestling over everything else. Do I have skills? Yes. My job that I do, I'm framing. I'm a carpenter. I know how to do that. But you're not making a killing doing the carpentry, and you're destroying your body even more. And that carpentry, because one of the employees was drunk in the workplace, didn't take any of the warnings or anybody saying that, hey, this guy's drinking on the job serious. He dropped boards on my neck, and now I need neck surgery, which led to these blood clots, which led to me being airlifted from one hospital to the next. You know how much that's going to cost me, even with health insurance? Do you know how much 2 weeks in a U.S. hospital, even with health insurance, is going to cost me? Do you know how
Yeah, I
much
can't
it's going
imagine.
to cost me to keep trying to be in my son's life because family courts are rotten? Do you know how much it's going to cost me when I have to get out of here and put groceries in the fridge and buy clothes for my baby because she's 5 months and she's growing out of them? What happens if my wife's car breaks down and she can't get to work? Who's going to pay for that bill? What's going to happen when I have to sell my new car, which I only have and paid off because I didn't want to have bills? I now have to go sell just to get some money in my pocket and buy an older car that has 150,000 miles on it just so I can get to pick up my son and get to work. I don't even have a good vehicle in my name. I'm not going to have it after I get out of this hospital because people ruined my career for nothing. For what? To feel good about themselves on the internet? And I understand the people that don't even know what was said. I get it, man. You don't know who I am. You hear these awful things. If somebody beside me sexually assaulted or raped a woman, hands down, I would beat the shit out of them. I would go to prison willfully. Willfully. I would put my own hands in handcuffs for beating somebody that did that. That, to me, if you harm women or children, it's the most disgusting thing on the planet. But when you get caught up in this and start reading, this happens every day. There is children, 18, 19-year-old, that are committing suicide because they've been falsely accused. There's college athletes that girls accuse because they don't want their boyfriends to know they cheated on them, that their dreams of the NFL are destroyed and they do prison time for it. I didn't do prison time because nobody accused me of anything to the police. They only did it on social media, knowing that social media would take their side and they would hurt me in my career. Why did they want to hurt my career? I have a text message from one of these girls saying, you think this is over. It's far from over. You'll never make good money in your life again. That text was out there. That's a threat. And then stuff went out to try to harm my career. It's so silly. Like, it's just rotten that I have to live like this. I'm dreading being in the, as I said, I've been in the hospital for 2 weeks. I don't know how much they're going to charge me. I know that helicopter ride, so just so that I didn't have to get my leg amputated and worry that a blood clot could go into my brain or heart and die. I could have died. And I'm fighting over my son. My son hasn't even come to visit me in 2 weeks. I had to get a court order to do that because I'm also going through custody, which is a whole nother thing. And one day I might be able to say why all this is happening. But people are evil. And my ex-wife never said anything about me, but she reads these things on the internet, doesn't want my son to read it. So then she's upset with me as if I did something. But I was married to her for 8 years. She never had anything to say publicly. Why? Because that's not the man I am. And she knows that. Right? The only reason we got divorced was because I was unhappy. And then me being unhappy made her unhappy.
Right.
Which happens, It happens. But now I have to fight this because she's worried about my son reading stuff on the internet when he's older. So I genuinely suffer every day financially and mentally because of it. Like I said, I'm okay, meaning I'm not going to harm myself. I don't need a counselor. I go to church on Sundays. My wife and my daughter are with me other than when I'm in the hospital every day. And I know what I'm doing and what I have to do for them. And I'm going to continue to do it. But, I'm mocked all the time. Oh, stop complaining. Stop complaining. I thought we were supposed to take mental health seriously. Isn't that what happens every year? Somebody tweets out men's mental health matters, and then they do this type of shit and people kill themselves, and then it's for a week, oh, we should be nicer to people, and then it just goes back to the same thing. I could have been that person. I could have blown my brains out in 2021. I was very close. I mean, very close. The only thing that saved me was my son and my now wife. Without them, I wouldn't be here. I drove to Detroit to hang out with Truth Martini for a week because I wanted to say goodbye. Even though I wasn't saying goodbye, I wanted to see him before I left this planet. This is all real things. I worried that what it would do to my mother. I worried what it would do to my son. And I snapped out of it, and I'll never, ever think about taking my life again. And mentally, I'm okay when I'm around people. Just alone, it's sad because my alone time used to be thinking about what my next match was going to be. What spots could I come up with? What could I create? Right. And now I don't even know when that next, yes, I was still doing indies, but I wasn't making, I had to cut my rate down significantly just to get booked, to continue what I was doing because I love it and I want to teach the next generation. I want to wrestle talent that doesn't get to wrestle guys as experienced as me. So I had to cut my rate down, it was 3 times the price that I charge now. So I'm making even less when I do indies just to take time away from my family because without it, I would be lost. I need to have some kind of wrestling in my life. And to think that I might never get the opportunity to be on an AEW or be in WWE. It doesn't just crush me as a 38-year-old man. It crushes the 5-year-old kid that walked into kindergarten, and when the teacher on the first day of school asked what you want to be when you grow up to all the kids, I said pro wrestler. It hurt the kid that when he finally made a real Aaron Frobel Facebook online, kids from high school were messaging him going, man, I know we used to joke around about you and your wrestling, but we watched you on TV and can't believe you made it. You're crushing the dreams of that person too. Over lives. As I said, on my life, on my children's life, if I did anything that I felt would harm my career and make it so I cannot do this for a living, I would own up to it. I would apologize. And I would say, I hope I get a second chance, but if I don't, I understand. I'm just not in that situation. I'm in a situation that really was not my fault. Now, meaning, it wasn't my fault that when I left New Japan to go to TNA, I got separated from my wife, and was I seeing women? Yes. That's my fault. Maybe I should have been more religious then, so I didn't think that casual sex was a good thing. You know what I mean? Like that's the only fault I can see, because you don't think you're going to meet somebody, you're going to enjoy their company, and then when you don't enjoy their company anymore, you're supposed to just, okay, it didn't work out, see you later, have a nice life. You don't think people are going to be vengeful and say stuff that's not true. Like, you just don't think that. And like I said, that was only one girl. The other girl was from 2011, and I shared a bed with her, and she said, I made a move, I stopped. And in her claim, you know what she said? I didn't know till years later when I talked to a friend about it, there was attempted sexual assault.
Right.
It's crazy. It's crazy to me because, as I said, people assume that I was accused of these vicious things. It's like, no, there's even people saying, like, he never hid anything. He never did that. Have I ever had an argument with a spouse where we raised our voices? Yes, where we raised our voices. But when you hear abuse, you're thinking like some guy just comes in the house and says, "Where's my effing dinner? And where's this? And why isn't the house effing clean?" That's not me. You know, I just never liked that. I don't care. I can clean. I can cook. And I meal prep. So my food's cooked every Sunday and Thursday. I don't need somebody to, "Hey, baby, you're in there. Can you put some Tupperware in the microwave for me for a minute? Because it's already cooked." You know, it's so crazy that it can be broadcasted and accused of abuse for normal things. Like, as I said, if you really read it, nobody's ever said I forced myself on them. Nobody says I hit them. Nobody said I threatened to hit them. It's always like, he's big and strong and a bodybuilder and a wrestler, so I feared him because he raised his voice. But why did I raise my voice? Because you were on me for 18 weeks and I finally raised my voice? It's not like I just came in and yelled at you. I admit, has there been times where I've been in an argument with a spouse and we both raised our voices? Yes. But both raised their voices. Hell, I've had girls that talk shit about me that have hit me because they were so frustrated, and I wasn't even raising my voice. You know what I do? I leave. And then, guess what? I gave them the silent treatment because I left because they hit me. That shit's said. So you want me to stay in the house and allow you to hit me? And of course it didn't hurt. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they bloodied the nose or anything, but, you know, they're hitting the chest, they're slapping the face, and you're getting frustrated for no reason. I'm going to leave this premise. And then it's like, "Oh, you're just going to leave? You gave me the silent treatment." That's what abuse is now. That's what people say. "Well, he never really did anything, but he gave me the silent treatment." Why did I give you the silent treatment? Because you're yelling at me and I'm not going to raise my voice at you? Because you're trying to start an argument and I don't feel like arguing? So I'm not going to talk? Because if I talk normally, you get more mad and get in my face? It's like, I wish now that I just when I was a baby, I could have implanted a camera in my forehead that ran 24/7, so I could be like, what did I do? Here, let's play back the footage to see what really happened. Because, as I said, it's miserable, man. I think I have $9,000 to my name, and most of it's going to go to this fucking hospital bill.
I think there are things that when people speak online about these things, that they don't realise the consequences past the screen that they're typing on. They don't see the consequences, not just for you, like you said, like your family, like, you know, like that poor little 5-year-old, and they haven't done anything. You know, why should they have to suffer because of things? You know, it is awful. And in the UK, I'm not sure if it travelled abroad. After the speaking out, that was the big one that started.
Yeah.
We had a big Be Kind thing that came out, and that was when a TV presenter tragically took their own life once rumours had come out about them. They've been proved to not be real in the end.
Right.
And you know, there was a big Be Kind movement where people should be more kind, obviously, but they should be more careful with the words that they're actually typing online. And it's weird that things from that speaking out thing, even the people that have, like you said, been proven innocent, those things seem to have stuck. But the things from that Be Kind movement, people don't seem to remember them as much.
No. I mean, yeah, as I said, it's hard because even though I know they would have been canceled for speaking up, there are so many people out there that know how I am and what I did for them. And I think if collectively they all spoke up, but they were in fear that they would be canceled next because they have families to take care of too. So I don't blame them for not speaking up. But think of, for somebody to call me an abuser, use the terms gaslighting, narcissism, to have people in fear to correct what you're saying about somebody that they know is not true, you're doing to them what you're claiming I've done to people.
Right.
Because people out of fear would not speak up on my behalf because it was going to hurt their career, hurt their bookings. Like, think about that. That's manipulation to a T. You know, Larry Dallas spoke up for me once, and he got fired off of Busted Open Radio
Wow.
because people attacked his workplace. You know what I mean? Like, it happens, and it's crazy. As I said, I'm many things. I'm not perfect. I've definitely made mistakes in my life, but all mistakes I've ever made, I've owned up to. And
Obviously, I
any
don't.
mistake I've made won't hurt my career. And if I did anything wrong during these movements, I would have been the first to say, "Hey guys," I might have corrected it. You know what I mean? Like, meaning this isn't exactly how it happened, but I can see my fault in these things. But me communicating to a girl that I don't want anything serious, and her continually trying to get something serious, and then me finally saying we cannot talk anymore because one day you tell me you can be friends, then the next day you're sending me sexual messages, and then she accuses me of being abusive because I let her on and I cheated on her. I mean, how can I trust my wife alone? I knew her for 9 months. I couldn't even hold her hand.
Right.
I was afraid to hold her hand because if she said the name Michael Elgin online, people would jump all over it. Like, I couldn't even hold her hand, didn't kiss her, didn't get near her, and she stuck by me. She saw something in me. And even before our first date, I sent her not just what was said about me online, but the actual accusations. And she read the accusations. She goes, "People hate you for this? This doesn't make sense." I go, "I know, but that's how social media works." And then for 9 months, she hung out with me, and I didn't kiss her. I barely even flirted with her. We were just homies hanging out watching TV on separate sides of the couch. And then finally, I realized that maybe this was a good person, and she has been. But it ruined a lot of aspects of my life, man. I was afraid to have friends. It makes you like suspicious of everybody and everything. Um, I was secluded in my house for like a year, man. Like, blinds off. My mom had to come visit me because she was afraid. A friend from Windsor, who she is such a sweetheart, she flew out to see me. People in wrestling that I still talk to, which I don't want to say their names because I don't want to get them heat.
That's
They
funnily
came out
enough.
for
That
dinner.
was exactly what I was going to say to you next. I was going to say, well, the exact words that I was going to say. I don't want to. I don't need to know names, and
Right.
not throwing that out there. But how many people did stick by you, and do you still speak to a lot of people that
Not a
you did
lot.
beforehand? No,
I can count them on one hand.
really.
Yeah, and I don't have enough limbs or fingers and toes to count how many people I helped in their careers before this stuff happened.
Wow.
I'm chopped liver to them, even though I gave them. I was always the person who would see talent because I did indies religiously, even when I was making. I mean, when I was in Japan, I would come home and do indies just because I loved wrestling so much, and I wanted money for my family. And I would see talent, and I would book them on Glory Pro. And when AAW or AIW or PWG were looking for talent, I would always suggest them because I wanted eyes on them. And 95% of them are either have been in those companies, are in those companies, or in developmental or in AEW now. And none of them can speak for me. You know what? Like, I went through hell, and at one point I started to GoFundMe and realized nobody's going to help me even when I'm really struggling. And I thought about there's a big name, one of the biggest names possible, has a big match tonight. And when he was sent home from Ring of Honor, he knew how booked I was and asked me if I could get him bookings. And I got him bookings all the time. I mean, countless times. And not that I was hoping that would pay off in the long run, but you see the certain wrestlers that I've been around in my career that when somebody's in real financial issues, they always donate to a GoFundMe. But they can't donate to mine because how dare they? They'll be ripped apart online. Even though you can do it anonymously.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But nobody chooses to. And as I said, I'm in a position now where I've thought about a GoFundMe, even though I hate it because I don't like asking for help. But I know I'm gonna make 125 bucks from a couple fans that still support me. They can afford sending me 10 bucks. When the people that are making big money that I've helped or was kind to won't even bat an eye when I'm struggling. So it's tough, but hopefully these injuries get taken care of, and maybe I'll be as good as a carpenter as I'm a wrestler, and I'll build some houses and make some money.
I'm sorry this interview did go down such a
No,
dark route, because
no.
I did want
I don't
to.
think it's a dark. I don't think it's a dark path.
Okay.
I think that people have to hear this stuff. I think that if people realize what they're doing, maybe later on in life, if somebody ever sees themselves at a crossroads like I am and accused and they are innocent, hopefully people will give them a second chance. You know, hopefully people will hear them out. Hopefully somebody that's out there that's a wrestling fan that is suffering through depression can look at this and hear me talk and realize that there is a way to get out of it. Even though it's never going to be perfect, there is a way not to feel like the only way out is ending your life. So I don't think this is dark. I'm hoping that this can be helpful for somebody out there, because there's many people in this world that feel lonely, that feel lost, that feel like the only way out is taking their own lives. And if they can understand that it's okay to say something to somebody like I'm saying to you, where I'm not okay, but I'm okay. Like, I'm not in
Yeah.
danger, but there's still struggles, and I'm going to face those struggles likely till the day I die, unless I can get back to wrestling. It's going to be something that weighs on my heart and weighs on my brain and weighs on my entire life, mentally, physically, emotionally, until the day I die. Truthfully, it's going to be something that I feel I didn't get to fully accomplish, and that's going to weigh me down until the day I finally pass away. But all I can say is I'm not going to pass away at my own hand. It's either going to be natural causes or, an unfortunate accident, because I have 2 kids to raise, and I have a wife that loves me, and I have a lot of family back in Canada that would destroy if I wasn't alive. So I'm going to keep plugging away. And like I said, I don't think this turned down a dark path. I think hopefully, if nothing else, maybe somebody will hear this and feel like it's okay to express themselves, and it's okay to live on and find different ways out of darkness.
It's funny that I started this conversation saying that we're similar age, and the fact that you said those words, I'm okay, but I'm not okay, but I'm okay. That's exactly things that I've said to my wife, I've said to my mum, down the years when I've had bad parts. Yeah, I think it is a very important quote to say. It is okay to say sometimes that I'm okay, and they're like, "Are you really?" I'm like, "I'm not okay, but I'm alright."
Yeah, it really is.
Before I let you go, because I know obviously you're in the hospital, this can't be the most comfortable you've ever been. I just wanted to ask you one last question before we finish tonight. You did a few UK tours over the years, and I wanted to ask you, what was the main differences between the UK, or the you saw between the UK Indies and the US Indies?
Man, that's hard. It's just you're showing these matches. And I love it because that was just me and Finn and me and Ricochet, which
I know,
to me
yeah.
are two of the best wrestlers I've ever seen. I wish I had got to do more in England. I really loved England. I really appreciated it, and I think the fans are just, I don't know. They were like a different reaction when I was there. They were like they almost reacted as if it was like a football match, didn't they? Like,
Yeah.
wrestling fans in the UK are just so lively and so want their chance and want to be involved, and it's a beautiful thing. I think it was awesome, man. I love the UK, and I genuinely miss it.
Michael, thank you so much for coming on today. What? Obviously, shout out the name of your YouTube channel and throw out any plugs that you've got at all to finish the show.
Yeah, I think it's From the Horse's Mouth. Is the channel itself, because but if you just search Elgin's Wrestle Wisdom, that's the podcast, and on there's some other little wrestling tidbits for wrestlers. I have like a couple. It's called Next Era Wrestling Class, and it's just a little advice to give, and I try to post little hints on X there, but I also have a Facebook page called Elgin's Wrestle Wisdom, and I try to post, whether it be reviews, much like you talk about matches and shows, and just breakdowns of little things I see in wrestling that I think could improve. So if you want to check that out, great. If you want to, as a fan, get a little bit more insight into what it takes to be a high-level pro wrestler, listen, read the post. If you're a wrestler who wants some free advice out there, please check it out. And other than that, whether you support me or not, support wrestling, whether that be WWE, AEW, TNA, MLW, Japan, England, Mexico, whatever you want to support, your local indie. Just show some love to pro wrestling, because no matter what has happened in my career, without fans, I would have never been given a platform to live my dream. And the fans were the ones who bought tickets, who supported wrestling, and gave me that platform. So please just love pro wrestling.
Thank you again so much for coming on. Stay on the line just a moment, because I'm just going to do my ending for the show, and I'll give you a proper goodbye as soon as we finish.
Alright, sounds good.
Thank you so much for tuning in today, guys. If you've been affected by any of the things that you have heard in this video, please do reach out to people. There's always sites that you can go to. There's always phone numbers. Speak to your family members. Speak to your friends. It is okay to not be okay sometimes, but we've all got our own fights and our own demons. But we will get through this. If you like the video, please leave a like and subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you for another video soon. Bye, guys.